What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another chance encounter. Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. We're seeing more properties like this being built in front of a house that's going to be torn down soon. I understand that there are power lines that are getting kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg, and that there is a commercial real estate building. I'm here today with Quynh Lee. How are you doing today, Quynh?
Doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm fantastic because after all, my very favorite audience member is watching today. And why is my favorite audience member watching today? It's because this is a chance encounter where I interview commercial real estate syndicators, that's investors, that's buyers, that's sellers. And why would I do such a silly thing? Well, if you want access to private deals like me, I sure do, and maybe you've heard of them being called 506B syndications. Well, if you want to get involved, you need to have a documented prior substantive relationship because the SEC, once you get to a certain amount of assets under management, you'll get audited. And so that way you have that documentation that you actually learn people's level of sophistication, appetite for risk, and all that kind of stuff. But the important thing is I want to make sure that you can effectively communicate on the subject of commercial real estate and you understand how my guest fits into those deals. But before we get too excited on those, gory details, Quynh, do you want to say a thing or two about yourself before we talk about your business?
Yeah, so I guess some interesting things about me. I had a world Guinness record for bubble soccer and yeah. And another interesting fact that people find, I guess, is I housed a homeless man once for 2 months.
Wow,
Random facts.
that's definitely interesting stuff. So,
Yeah.
but the thing that I want to do first, though, it looks like it decided to go to the beginning. I need to say, but wait, check your eight. And Quynh, I don't know if you can do this. Some people can. It's if you look through the camera and then add to the audience's device down there, there might be this hideous red subscribe button that like it's just an eyesore, and maybe they should do something. Okay, it's a stupid joke, but I do it in every episode. Anyway, the five distinct motivations. I've interviewed all sorts of investors, syndicators, and whatnot, operators, and one of the most important things for us is we need to make sure that people are going to follow through the entire deal because it takes months. There are plenty of risks involved. Sometimes the deals end up falling through, and I need to know what's the motivation. And even though we all have our unique whys, I found that they fit pretty nicely into these five different categories. So the first one, it's not mine, but it's preservation of purchasing power. What's that all about? See, some people already have a portfolio of assets, and the way that they make ends meet is from the profits or proceeds of ownership. And the only reason why somebody like that would want to make a new acquisition, there's one would be if inflation is eating away at the purchasing power of the cash flow, then they're going to make another acquisition. But the other one would be is if there's a steep discount, like if there's an asset crash or some sort of distress, that's the only situation where they want to be making a new acquisition. But that's not what I'm up to. What I'm up to, because I started in real estate in 2014 from the digital side of things, specifically it's the CRM side of tech. So that means mass emailing. Like the company I was working for starting in 2014, they were flipping 10 houses a month. And what hit me though is I found out that I was paying more in tax than anybody else. My boss was making way more than I was, but he was also able to keep more of it. And so it hit me as like, well, how can I pivot so that I'm getting rewarded in the form of deployed capital, aka equity, instead of making the high salary and then paying taxes and then shooing away what's left in investments. So that's why I'm doing this. But that's a little too subtle for some people. And especially the youngsters, when they get into this industry, there's a good chance what they're trying to do is they're trying to take back control of their schedule. And that might mean fast tracking to retirement, but it might just mean working fewer months per year, fewer weeks per month, something like that. And that's why, these people are interested in this. They're looking to basically tone it down in the future. But that's in stark contrast with this next group. Some people, they're just plain ambitious. So they are in for that generational wealth. They want to buy their entire hometown. They want to make sure that their great grandchildren never have to hold a day job. And that's why they're making these acquisitions. And they're fantastic people to have on the team because they're going to be hustling into their 90s. They're never going to give up. They're not looking to scale back. And this next group, they're also going to stick with it long term, but their intentions are a little bit different. They've picked some sector of society, or maybe it's the environment or animals, or who knows what it is. But if you really want to make a big difference, there is a financial component to that. And so that's why some people are making their acquisitions. It's so that they have that to provide for others. But Quynh, as far as you're concerned, those 5 different motivations, what combination of those would you say describes you best? What really jumped out?
So for me, the tax situation is definitely what describes me as well too. And I think after learning so much about how real estate in general can help with taxes if done correctly, and then also, fast tracking to retirement. I don't want to work into my 90s. I'm very ambitious, but I want to also have fun, and also helping, those who need it in the future, or having enough time and money to be able to dedicate myself to a cause. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. That brings me to my next question, which is a tolerance for risk assessment. And if you've ever been involved in a 506B deal, one thing that you would have run into is they have these questionnaires that securities attorneys insist that you fill out, or you have all your investors fill out. And they're very invasive. They ask all sorts of questions about your finances. But one of the questions I thought where they kind of dropped the ball a bit, it was the question about risk tolerance. Because I just thought that if I had the answer to that question, it wouldn't really tell me if the person understands the risks that are involved. And there are plenty. So what I have instead is this fill in the blanks question. There are many popular investment asset classes, but I think blank is too risky. What is too risky for you, Quynh? It could be inside real estate. It can be outside real estate. Anything that's too risky. What's too risky for you?
For me, anything that's too risky is anything that I don't know that much about, because I've known people who have succeeded at options trading, and a lot of people will say that's risky. Day trading, crypto, even real estate. I've heard of people losing money in real estate and gaining in real estate. So I think that's anything that you don't know much about.
I love that answer. It's fantastic. I can just gobble that right up like that message to subscribe to the channel. That's like, what a segue, right? That thing just kills me. Anyway, it brings us to the segment about the Dan Does Deals Commercial Core Competency Cube, and it has the 6 different roles in a commercial deal, and I go through all 6 sides in every episode. It only takes about 2 minutes, and the reason why I do that is because, first of all, it's super duper important that you learn how to effectively communicate on the subject of commercial real estate, but you also need to know how my guest fits into these deals. And to facilitate that, if you want your own copy of the die, you go to dandoesdeals.com. And like a complete dummy, I don't even ask for your email address. And from a marketing perspective, that's the worst thing you can possibly do, give away your freebie without asking for some sort of contact information. But again, I want you to do it because I want you to be able to print this out and talk to people about these different roles and understand how to assemble a team, because your success in this industry is going to depend on it. But it takes a couple minutes, and I start off with the repositioner. The repositioner is an acquisitions person, so they're looking at a bunch of different properties and they're doing a bunch of paperwork. Now, what's this paperwork all about, you may ask? And there's a fancy word for it. They're underwriting the deal. That means they're doing the math. They're figuring out, first of all, is this property actually making the amount of money that the seller or broker claims it is? Because I'll let you know a little secret. It's pretty frequent that they'll fudge the numbers or give projections that don't make sense, or even give you 14 months when it's supposed to be 12. So kind of a scary prospect. But a lot of people call repositioners investors. I'm more specific with that because there are other types of investors. But the thing that really separates the repositioners is they're figuring out how can they change how the property is run so that there's more upside. And there are a few different ways they can find upside. One, it's part of every repositioner's business is interacting with financiers. Those are lenders. Those are people who only deal with paper and money. They are not operators. They do not do asset management. They're strictly just dollars and cents and contracts and things like that. And the reason why they are so important to these deals is because if you can get a more advantageous loan, that goes straight to the profitability of the property because it's just less cost on the debt service. But the next place that the repositioners are going to look, it's the operations team. They're going to say, hey, how can we get those Benjamins, stop them from going down the toilet there? But of course, there's a lot more to operations than just unclogging toilets and collecting rent and mowing lawns and stuff like that. Me personally, because of my marketing background, social media, all this digital CRM, automation, blah, 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 one of the big things that I am useful for in my GP teams is that even if you do end up outsourcing your operations to a third party, like they generally do when it's 100 units or more, if you have a vacancy rate problem, if you just can't seem to fill the units, then somebody on the team is going to have some serious marketing chops to get those units filled, and the GP team will have to step in. But one of the problems about commercial real estate, it's a business that's been around for a very long time, so it's very competitive. So finding places to cut in operations, that's not always going to be viable. So the next place that many repositioners look to force appreciation, as they call it, and force the value going up of the property, is they'll get a contractor team involved to do a value add or do renovations. And the idea being that if you have nicer units, the next resident will be more than happy to pay more in rent than the previous one. But you still have to be super duper careful when it comes to spending money on construction and contractors. Like if you're out there gold plating toilets, you're not going to get a decent return on investment on that sort of thing. And of course, there are other things you have to be mindful of when it comes to contractors. Like, are they staying on schedule? Are they using the right parts? Are they cutting corners in general? And if you're like me, see, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm from the internet. So that means I need locals. I need boots on the ground. I need somebody who can be there in an hour or two, because you bet that's not going to be me. If I need to be there at a property, I would still be stuck at an airport in an hour or two. So there's going to have to be somebody who lives nearby, who can frequently check in on the property, make sure the operators are doing what they're supposed to, making sure that the contractors are staying on schedule and whatnot. But when the repositioner has decided on a property, they've got the team assembled and all that, they turn around to the financiers and say, hey, I got this property that I'm getting under contract. It's, let's say, 350 units and it's worth tens of millions of dollars. Hey, financier, you don't happen to have, I don't know, tens of millions of dollars you want to lend us, do you? Well, one question that the financier is going to need to know the answer to, and I've glossed over it. And a lot of coaches, and gurus, they tend to skip it. It is, who is your sponsor? Who's the KP? What's that all about? See, let's do a scenario. Let's say you have a circle of friends and you want to pool resources. You're a physician, you're an engineer, something like that, and you decide you're going to take over a commercial property. One of the snags that you're going to run into is you're not going to be eligible for a commercial loan unless somebody in the fold already owns a similar asset. So you can't be getting a loan for a 350 unit apartment complex unless somebody already owns a 350 unit apartment complex. On top of that, between the GP team, you're going to need a certain amount of liquidity, and you're also going to need a balance sheet of at least the amount of the loan. But if you have all those pieces, you got yourself a commercial real estate deal. So Quynh, as far as you go, I understand that you have some repositioner roles. Like most people, every repositioner has some investor relations roles. But as far as your core competencies that you're likely to contribute, where do you fit in?
I would like to actually be really great at underwriting
Mm-hmm.
so that I can be an even better with investor relations.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. It's really important stuff. So that brings me then to the buy box. And when investors or syndicators are talking to each other and saying, hey, what's your ideal property? What's your buy box? We're really asking about three main things. The first one's geography. Where is it? Where's the properties? Which states, which counties, possibly even which neighborhood? Okay, it's not going to be ideal unless it checks that box. The second thing is going to be the size. And the most of my guests here on Chance Encounters, they are in multifamily, which is apartment complexes. And the way that you define the size of these complexes is by unit count. And it's very important to know this because you're going to have a completely different kind of group taking over a 15 unit apartment complex compared to the 150 unit apartment complexes. So that size matters. Other forms of commercial real estate like industrial go by square footage, but unit count is the normal answer in these episodes. But the third one, it's called class. And one of my pet peeves is when people use the same word for more than one thing with different meanings. And with class, I separate them into two. The first one is condition. So the condition will be how old is the property, how beat up is the property, is it up to date? And then as far as like luxuries and amenities go, if it doesn't have any, that's one thing. But if it's full of luxuries and amenities, then that's another. And that's what I call the condition. The second meaning of class is better stated as area. And when we're talking about what's the area like, we're talking about what are the school districts like where the property is located? What's the crime rate like where the property is located? And then, of course, how much traffic goes by that property in any given day? And both of those two meanings of class are rated the same way as in grade school, where you got A plus at the top, and then A, and then A minus, and then B plus. But as far as you go, Quynh, like what's easier to say yes to and what's more difficult to say no to when it comes to these properties?
So definitely looking for an area that's B and above, and of course, properties that are C and above, and definitely value add.
Mhm.
And right now, possibly looking into McDonough, Cartersville area in Georgia,
Mhm.
and 40 units and above is what I'm going for right now.
Mhm. 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 All
Uh,
right. All
and
right.
of course, in a path of progress.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly, exactly. So that way you got more of that growth all baked in. That's the good stuff. So then the next question has to do with who you are best suited to help. And we all have our own unique skill sets. Everybody seems to be really eager in commercial real estate to help give referrals, build new teams, and help each other out. But because of our unique skill sets, we're better suited to help some people more than others. Me, I'm the digital guy from the internet. So the sponsors and KPs are the ones who tend to benefit from my help the most. They've already got a foundation where a digital guy can make a huge difference. Whereas when you're first getting started as a repositioner, you need somebody who's going to be putting in 80 to 120 hours a week to really knock it out of the park. And that's just plain not going to be me. But the locals are the other people who I really rely on just because, again, I'm from the internet. But Quynh, we were talking about investor relations. I don't know if you have any 506B deals going on, but you can't be enticing investors if you do and mentioning specific deals. So if you have any like candy bars or donuts or something, don't wave them in front of the camera. You might accidentally entice somebody. But if you have like 506C deals, then you can go right ahead. But who's out there in the audience who you think you're best suited to help?
So I have extensive background in digital marketing as well too.
Mhm.
So sponsors, as you're saying, and then potentially even other people who are um,
Repositioners?
in investor relations. I can help them, come up with an idea of how to get more partnerships going on online or through organic social media outreach.
Mhm, mhm. I love it. I love it. And so the next thing then it has to do with how to reach out. Me, I got this super distinct last name, so I'm easy to find, especially on LinkedIn, which is the social media platform that I spend most of my time on. But this QR code right here, that brings you to the FAQs page of 506 BME, which is the platform that I offer to document your substantive relationships for your investor network. And then that way, when the SEC wants to know, is like, okay, did you actually get to know your investors? or were you pitching people all willy-nilly like you're not supposed to. That's how I make sure that you've got that covered, and I can turn it into a habit so you don't accidentally forget and then wind up behind the eight ball. But as far as you're concerned, Quynh, is the social media channel is the best way to reach out, or do you have a website? How should people reach out?
Yeah, you know what? You can reach me on LinkedIn. Look for Quynh Lee, and you'll find me under Benny Equity Management, or you can email me at Quynh@bennyequity.com.
All right, beautiful. And then the last thing, it's actually not for you, Quynh, it's for you in the audience. It's a public service announcement. And it is, if you've been watching this episode and you've been experiencing searing pains in your eyeballs, perhaps like migraine-like symptoms, I'm confident it's all because of that hideous red subscribe button that's down there. And if you want to get rid of it, you click it and it turns gray. You should see the gray one. The gray one's really nice. And of course, I'm biased. I like it when people click it, because if enough people click on the subscribe button, then YouTube will actually start paying for these videos instead of me. And I think that would be absolutely spectacular. And as far as you're concerned, it doesn't cost you anything. I don't get your email, so it's not like I'm going to spam the crap out of you or anything like that. And honestly, really what it means is my videos might show up on your list of suggestions, and that's really it. But you can go ahead and ignore those suggestions, because I just appreciate the fact that you spent this time with me. Just like Quynh, I appreciate you joining me today. This has been great getting to know you a little bit better.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks. Make sure you 506B me. Any syndicators, make sure you 506B me.
Hi.
Oh, hey. Yeah, here's my code. You got your QR code scanner? Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just hold it right in the square there. Okay, cool. And now you hit open in browser.
Okay.
Okay. Are you already logged into 506B me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So there's my video. So now I'm already on your watch list. So when you get back to your hotel, you can find out what my core competencies are and my level of sophistication. Sound good?
Yeah.
I love your hat. Real estate's a scam. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
506B me, everybody.